When I got inside my car, the snowfall had just started. I knew the drive wouldn't be easy, so I wanted to reach home as soon as possible. I gripped the steering wheel as snowflakes swirled outside, blanketing the empty road in a silent white haze. To feel more alive, I turned on some music, but 15 minutes down the ride, the car shuddered, lurching to one side as a sharp pop broke the silence. "Damn it," I cursed, pulling over onto the desolate, snow-blanketed road. As I stepped out, my boots crunched on the icy ground. The cold bit deep into my skin. Just when I was trying to take in the feeling of getting a flat tire in this isolated road, I heard a low whistle. A shiver ran down my spine. I thought I was alone here. I grabbed the flashlight from my car trunk and inspected the area. That's when I saw it. A red Chevy parked under a tree at some distance. I checked my phone. It's 9 p.m. Why would someone whistle a romantic tune in such a desolated road? I wanted to stay in the car, but what if the owner of the car is close by and could help me with my flat tire? Thinking this, I began walking towards the sound. The whistle grew louder with each step, but its source remained unknown, always just beyond the next bend. I stopped near a big tree. Behind the tree was an open ground followed by the edge of the cliff. The starry sky was visible from there, and under the stars, I could spot two people sitting by a fire pit under a canopy. Wow, can people be this romantic in 2024? I couldn't help but roll my eyes. I looked closer and saw a man and a woman sitting under the canopy. The man had his arms around the woman, and her long blonde hair dangled over his arm. The man was whistling, whispering into her ears, and even chuckling. The night around them was eerily quiet, except for the occasional rustle of leaves. The stars above were brilliant, but the way he looked at them, wide-eyed and grinning, made my stomach churn. He leaned in closer and whispered into her ears. "You ever wonder if the stars are watching us?" he asked, his tone playful but somehow wrong. "They see everything. They know everything," he chuckled, a low, strange sound that didn't belong in such a peaceful setting. The woman didn't reply, but he kept talking. "I told them about you," he said, his fingers absently tracing patterns in the air. "They're excited to meet you. Heh heh heh." His laugh was sharper now, almost giddy, like he was holding back some terrible secret. The cold crept under my skin as something felt very wrong about the entire situation. I was wondering whether I should ask for his help or not when I accidentally stepped on a twig. The snap broke the silence and the man turned towards me. In the faint light of the fire pit, I could see spots of something on his face and clothes. With trembling hands, I flashed my light on him. The light highlighted the streaks of blood smeared across his face and jacket too clearly. His eyes locked onto mine, unblinking, with a strange, hollow calm. A twisted smile tugged at his lips, as if he knew something I didn't. "Don't be scared," he whispered. Suddenly, he swiped his arm around the woman and she fell back on the ground. Her face finally revealed to me, and I let out a scream. The woman's eyes were gouged out with something sharp. Trails of blood were frozen on her pale cheek. She has been dead for more than hours now. My boot crunched again as I slowly started backing away. The man got up too, retaining the same evil smile. And then suddenly, he sprinted towards me, his boots heavy and deliberate against the snow. I turned and bolted. My heart pounded so loud that it drowned out everything else. "Wait, I'm not gonna hurt you," he shouted, his voice harsh and much too close. I risked a glance back and saw him coming closer. I almost bumped inside the car and locked it immediately. The man stopped right next to my car window. Tilting his head to the left, he smiled at me and then raised a claw hammer to break the window. I swear, I have never seen death up close before. He struck the window and a large crack appeared. I almost knew he's going to kill me now. He raised his hand a second time, and I knew the glass will give in this time when headlights brightened the road. A car was coming. He looked at the car and then looked at me. His smile vanished, and with very angry eyes, he walked away, disappearing into the woods. I knew this was my only chance. I stepped out of my car, gathering all my courage, and stopped the car. An old man was driving it. I begged him to take me to the police station. He did. When I came back to my car with the cops, the red Chevy was gone, and so was the man. I led the cops to the place where I saw the body of the woman, but only the canopy and the dying fire pit laid there. No sign of blood or clues were there. The cops started investigating the guy for a week, but he was never caught. Neither the woman's identity was discovered. Sometimes, I still wake up at night thinking he might be standing outside my window, waiting for one chance to silence me forever, just like that woman. Last Christmas, I booked this log cabin up in the mountains. After 3 hours of driving, I reached the secluded cabin that stood like a lone wolf in the snowy valley. Once I got down from the car, and I realized what silence can be. Other than the sound of a snowy breeze, I couldn't hear a single hint of life. Just when I was enjoying the view around, I noticed a man coming out of the cabin, holding a lantern. He was wearing an old sweater ripped in places with baggy brown pants that have seen better days. His eyes were big and surrounded with dark circles like he hasn't slept in years. Toro escorted me to the cabin. Nestled in a quiet forest, the old wooden cabin stood as a relic of simpler times. Weathered logs, moss-covered shingles, and a creaky porch told stories of countless seasons. Inside, the scent of aged wood lingered, and a stone fireplace offering warmth and mystery. Showing me the kitchen and other needed amenities, Toro set out to leave. But just before closing the door behind, he turned to me. Sensing a worry in his mind, I asked, "Is there something else?" Toro looked outside. His tired eyes scanned the snow-covered woods and then whispered, "Do not go to the woods after dark." Saying this, he left in a hurry, like he wanted to run away from this place ASAP. I smirked, thinking how weird some people can be. He didn't need to tell me this, because no person with a sane mind would linger in the cold after sunset. I unpacked my stuff, took a warm bath, and then went to the kitchen to cook some dinner. As I sat to have my dinner on the table next to a large glass window, I felt a different kind of peace, something I haven't felt in a long time. I took a sip of the wine while watching the snowflakes dangling in the wind outside. The fireplace crackled with the burning woods. I was halfway down the dinner when the scream took place. Yes, a blood-curdling scream of a man in pain echoed outside. I almost jumped in fear. Someone's in trouble. Should I look outside? But Toro said, "Oh, forget what Toro said." The screams intensified, and I couldn't sit straight anymore. I slid right into my winter jacket and ventured out with a flashlight. The snowfall was getting heavier, and it was getting difficult to see. I stopped under a tree and yelled, "Anyone out there?" The scream took place again. This time, very close, but it ended abruptly, like something choked the voice of the person screaming. With a racing heartbeat, I followed the direction from where the scream came. There was a bushy area behind a tall pine tree. Weird sounds were coming from there. I peeked in and could see a dark figure that seemed like a woman from behind, hunched over the ground. The sounds were of chomping. Whatever that figure was, it was eating. I should have turned back right that moment, but my curiosity got the best of me, and I flashed the light on the figure. My blood froze as I got a glimpse of a man lying on the snow. His eyes were gouged out and his mouth was open wide with blood rushing down his lips. And near him sat a woman with long black hair. She was eating flesh from his body. I could hear the crunching of bones and splatter of blood with her every chomp. Suddenly, the woman looked back, noticing the flashlight on her. I have never seen a scary face like this. Her entire face was white like the snow. She had 2 black dots on her forehead, and the teeth were stained with blood. Her eyes were glowing like a hyena. A stream of blood was dripping from her mouth, and she smiled at me. I couldn't stand there anymore. I started running towards the cabin. My legs were shaking, yet I couldn't risk a fall. I could hear my heart beating in my throat. I was literally scared for my life. When I got in, I slammed the door and locked it. I was so terrified that the woman would follow me to the cabin that I secured the door by pushing the couch next to it. The entire night, I stayed in the living room, crouching next to the fireplace. All I could think of was the face and the wicked bloody smile on it. I probably dozed off before dawn when I heard slow knocking on glass. I opened my sleepy eyes and noticed the big window. The snowfall had stopped by then. Fading moonlight was glaring in the dim valley, and in that light, I could see a figure standing outside my window. It was that woman from the woods. Her face was carved into a huge smile, and she was staring at me. I was horrified by this scene. I could hardly blink or move. I don't remember how long the staring competition lasted, but then the thin ray of sunlight hit the window and I fainted. I woke up hearing Toro calling out my name around 11 a.m. in the morning. I somehow carried myself to the door and opened it. He stood there looking at me with doubt and confusion. I didn't bother to clear his mind and just packed my things. When I handed him over the cabin keys before driving off in my car, Toro whispered to me, "You did see her, right? The white-faced woman?" I fumbled in fear and drove off without waiting a second more. Till today, I try to think logically of what I saw and heard that night in those woods. But somehow, my mind gives up and all I end up imagining is that ominous smile. I wish I never went to that cabin last winter. I'm a fitness instructor, and my job compels me to take care of my body. I go to the gym thrice a week and make sure to jog every day. Though since last winter, I go jogging in the evening since the city park is crowded at that time. And it's all because of what happened last winter. Usually, I preferred jogging in the early morning since the park was secluded with less distractions and cacophonies of people. But something happened that made me alter my lifestyle forever. It was a foggy winter morning. I took a shot of Americano, followed by some almonds, and set out for a run. I jogged through the foggy, empty streets, my breath forming ghostly clouds in the icy air. Each footfall echoed faintly, swallowed by the surrounding silence. The shadows of leafless trees twisted and stretched, their skeletal branches reaching like ghostly fingers. The cold bit into my skin, but the rhythmic motion kept me warm. It took 20 minutes for me to reach the city park from my house. The city park lay draped in a thick blanket of fog. Bare branches of towering trees reached skyward like they're asking for warmth desperately. Frost covered the grass beds, shimmering faintly in the muted morning light. As I started running on the winding tracks, I couldn't help but think how these usually lively paths have drowned into the deadness of winter. Their curves disappeared into the fogs, creating mystery. The park benches were cold and damp. The distant outline of the park fountain emerged like a ghostly apparition. The air was crisp and heavy, and there was complete silence around. Not even a bird was chirping that day, which did come somewhat odd to me. At this point, I was cursing myself for not charging my earbuds last night. Running in that eerie quiet did make things uncomfortable, no doubt. 10 minutes into the run, I began hearing a weird sound. It was like metal rubbing against metal. The sound was getting louder as I moved ahead of the track. The fog in front of me got thinner, and I noticed the park swing. On the left swing, there was a woman. She was swaying back and forth slowly. She looked wrong. Her messy, tangled hair hung over her face, and her pale, almost gray skin stood out in the dull light. She wore this tattered blue pullover with its sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Her pencil-thin hands with bony fingers gripped the chains tightly, making them creak with every swing. So this was where the sounds were coming from. The fog wrapped around her like it belonged to her, hiding most of her body. Every now and then, her head jerked slightly, as if she was stuck in a loop. It was unsettling. It was creepy. Now the track ahead went through that swing. If I continue, I'll have to jog and pass by her, which means she will see me too. Even though her behavior appeared frantic, she looked harmless. And I'm a pretty muscular guy, so even if she does something unexpected, I was confident that I'll be able to handle it. I increased my pace and ran to the swing's direction. As I passed her, I slowly turned my head to get a good look of her face. Surprisingly, she didn't even notice me. She continued swinging while staring at the grass. Her face looked blank, and her eyes were wide with dark circles around them. Thinking she must be going through a tough time, I felt bad for judging her too quickly. I ran past her, and then suddenly, the metallic creaking stopped. A bad feeling crawled on my skin. I slowly turned around and saw the woman wasn't swinging anymore. She is sitting still and staring at me. Something about her face had changed. There was a smirk on it, which looked terrifying. Then she spoke to me in a low but shrill voice. "You know Millie used to love swinging. She would beg me every day to bring her to this park. Even in that cold, I could feel sweat covering my forehead." I asked nervously, "Who's Millie?" She stared at me for a few more seconds, said nothing, did nothing, then suddenly started swinging real fast. She was swinging wildly while laughing like someone who just got possessed. Her maniacal laughter echoed through the foggy park. Her hair flew everywhere, and her eyes were wide like a crazed gleam. The swing groaned under her reckless movements as she kicked higher and higher, laughing like she'd lost her mind. And then it occurred, the loud metallic screech. Suddenly, the chains gave a sharp jolt and she flew off, slamming hard onto the frozen ground. The laughter stopped instantly. Her head twisted at a sickening angle. Her neck broke. She spit out some blood from her mouth, and then her body shivered for a fraction of a second. And then, the unsettling silence took over the park again. I was so shocked and horrified that it took me a few minutes to register what just happened. But when my senses finally kicked in, I dialed 911. The cops came and so did the paramedics. Her body was taken out on a stretcher, and I told the cops everything I could while shaking in that cold. People from the area were asked about her, and a few told her tragic tale. She had a 5-year-old daughter, Millie, who died of pneumonia recently. Not being able to survive the grief of losing a child, she took her last breath in front of me. It took me several nights to get sleep, because every time I closed my eyes, I could see her swinging and then breaking her neck on the hard concrete. I really wish she had someone to help her, so she wouldn't have given up on life like this.